straight, white Christian.
No, Jesse, this is the subscribe thing.
Oh, yeah. I need you all to subscribe, support us on Patreon, like us on Facebook, and follow me on Twitter.
Got it.
Karen Straughan, as I said, is back. She's a spokesperson for Men's Rights Edmonton. Men's Right Edmonton. She is a contributor to avoiceformen.com, a prominent YouTuber under the name Girl Writes What, as well as an author and blogger. Karen, welcome back. Good to have you back on the show.
It's good to be back. Nice to talk to you again.
I know. You've been busy.
I have getting busier and busier too, so.
Yeah. So would you like to comment on this bomber? He's now dead. It's been reported that he's been killed, 24 years old. A nightmare for the folks there in Texas.
Yeah, that whole thing, that is just, it's pretty scary, you know, like when you think about, we had a terror incident a while ago here in Edmonton, believe it or not, where somebody grabbed a car, ran over a cop with a car, and then took a rented U-Haul and tried to run over people on one of our busy downtown streets. And so it's just very, 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 I mean, and I was like, this happens, you know, this happened right near where I live,
Wow.
where it started, right? So it's a little bit scary. It's a little bit frightening.
It sure is. It's amazing how people can allow anger to drive them to do such crazy things as what this guy's been accused of doing in Florida. I want to talk to you about feminism, the attack on men, and the movement, and the Me Too movement. What do you think first about the Me Too movement?
Oh, I think it probably started out with good intentions. I mean, the Weinstein article that kicked it all off was well researched. It was an investigative report essentially, and they followed a breadcrumb trail of closed, sealed settlements with these broad, sweeping non-disclosure agreements attached to them. And so, I mean, the thing that started it, I think, that was sort of a sense of, I guess, anger that I feel is probably righteous, but I think it's turned into a little bit of a lynch mob mentality, that like extrajudicial justice. It's. I don't want to say that we're going to have a repeat of, you know, a satanic panic type of thing, only social media style, but I think that might actually be what's going to happen. So
it seemed that way. You know, how did you get involved in reporting this about what's happening to men? So you're walking down the road one day and you say, wow, this is wrong. How did you get involved with helping men in this issue?
I stumbled on by accident on a men's website, and they were discussing men's issues and men's problems, and I had never really seen that before.
Yeah.
So I got involved in conversations there, and there's something about if you're sort of, they can't see you're a woman because you're in a comment section, and so these are men who are actually saying what's really on their mind, because men conceal a lot of what's going on in their heads from the women around them.
Yes.
And because the women around them usually don't want to hear it. They might say they do, and they might think they do, but they usually don't want to. And it just kind of got me thinking and looking into things, and I sort of started to see what was really going on out there. In policy and law, in sort of this push for change that's leaving men and boys behind, and I just had to do something. So
that's great. The New York Times came out with an article talking about feminist women not wanting men to ask, "Is this okay?" And so what's happening here in the university, they have taught men that when you have sex with women, you have to ask them, is this okay, through the whole act itself. I can't even imagine that, but they were taught that. Now they're saying that...
That turns me off.
Right. Now they're saying they don't want it that way. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, geez. I mean, granted, these might not be the same feminists. There might be two different groups of feminists feminists don't all have the same opinion, but there are so many internal consistencies within feminism that it's kind of silly. It's kind of ridiculous.
It's just, I don't know how adults come up with these ideas.
I don't either. And it's frustrating because so much of it is policy now, and it's been decided by people who maybe legislation has to be voted on. It has to be debated, right? But policy is usually thrown together by an ad hoc committee that were handpicked based on their own self-designated expert status. And it's really hard to uproot once it's in there, and some of it is just based on the most bogus research.
You're an expert when it comes to understanding the effects that not having fathers in the homes, how it interrupts the children's life. You recently spoke on the effects of fatherlessness and single mother on children, which government subsidize. Tell the folks a little bit about that.
Oh, well, I mean, it's perfectly possible to grow up in a single mother household and turn out okay, right? So just like it's perfectly possible to smoke all your life and never get lung cancer,
Yeah.
right? And live till you're 99. My grandmother did it. But essentially, what happens with kids, particularly when it starts off when they're very young, in single mother families, is they're more susceptible, they're more prone to behavioral problems, and or more likely to have behavioral problems, be expelled from school, be suspended, have learning disabilities. All through childhood, they have these things that may hold them back.
Right.
They're more like, one of the biggest and craziest statistics is they have a 35 times higher chance of running away from home as a juvenile.
Right.
And that's higher than the increased risk of smoking is in terms of lung cancer. You only have a 30 times higher risk as a lifelong smoker than, So essentially, we have all of these problems, and some of the statistics are really scary. I mean, like 2 to 32 times greater risk, or 35 times greater risk of, ending up in prison. 65%, I believe, of the incarcerated are
Yes.
the product of single mothers. You're more likely to become a rapist.
Yeah.
So it's really, really getting involved in gangs, and that's really probably, I think, what's going on in terms of criminality, particularly among boys, is that they go looking for masculine role models from
Yeah.
their same age and older peers.
Karen, before we run out of time here, how can people get to your website and see all the good things you're doing to make human beings better?
Well, I can't actually say the name of my blog on the air. But it's got a bad word. The FCC wouldn't like it. But
Right.
you can find me on my YouTube channel, Girl Writes What, or you can just put Karen Straughan, Straughan, in the Google search, and it'll kick up results. So,
What I find so interesting is that most people know the effects of not having two parents in the home, father, mother together. It's out there now. Everybody know about it, but there's not a strong effort to put families back together. Do you know why that is?
well, I think that there's a problem because women have to want to cooperate with this too.
Right.
Right. And we're not allowed to ask women to actually do anything either. And so essentially, I mean, stay married, don't divorce him. Don't kick him out of the house.
Right.
Work hard to try and work it out. So I think we have this tendency to heap all of the blame on men. And I just know too many men who are good fathers, who want to be involved, who are, even after divorce, they fight like tooth and nail for 50-50 custody.
Yeah.
Right. And they just get screwed. So, we have to actually look at it as a holistic problem that involves both sexes. And I think that the powers that be do not want to look at women's part in this. They do not want to do anything that would curtail women's choices. So, and one of the biggest things that they could do to actually stop the problem of the formation of single mother families would be to cut off the welfare.
Yes.
But nobody's going to do that because because then what won't anyone think of the children? Well, these women are often having these children by choice.
Yeah.
Because they know they can rely on that. And we're pricing men increasingly out of the market, in particular minority men or men from low socioeconomic backgrounds.
Yeah, that's right.
When that government check is actually providing more value than living with your child's father, like cash-wise, then a lot of women will just shoo them out the door.
Yeah. You said that feminism was always about hating men, not about equality.
Yeah, no, I firmly believe that. When we look back at the suffragettes, we're told that they were noble and they were wonderful and all of this. If you go back and you look at the real history of what they wanted, I mean, they wanted votes for wealthy white men and women only in the UK, and they didn't want all women to have the vote or all men to have the vote. And when women did get the vote in the Representation of the People Act, well, it was called the Representation of the People Act in the UK because there were 5 million men who still didn't have the vote. And this is after 1 million men died, British men died, in World War I, most of them not able to vote. So, I mean, we're looking at a really complicated history, even in the United States. And basically it's been boiled down to these noble, wonderful, heroic suffragettes and all those mean men who didn't want them to have the vote, when that's just not true. It hasn't been true. It wasn't true in any country.
Was it specifically about hating white men or all men?
Oh, I think that they, because it was wealthy and middle class and wealthy white women first who were the leaders of the movement back in 1848.
Right.
They declared war on their own men. So it's essentially a declaration of war on your own men. That was what the Declaration of Sentiments from Seneca Falls, the first feminist manifesto. You read through it, and it's like, yeah, no, that was the opening salvo in a gender war against our own men. So
amazing. I've noticed that they destroyed the black family by, as you mentioned earlier, giving the black woman welfare and things like that. And now today, not all, the average black man isn't worth a dime because he's no value to his family. The government take care of that. The women now hate the men because they're weak and not able to do manly stuff. And now I've noticed that the most hated species on this side of heaven is a straight, white, conservative, Christian man of power. He is hated like nighting going north. I'm glad to see the white men, there are some who are starting to speak up, because if they don't, it's over.
Oh yeah, no, it's all men are in the position of being vulnerable in certain ways to the way people perceive men, right?
Yes.
So all men are more likely to be convicted of a crime than a woman is, more likely to be sentenced to incarceration for it than a woman is. The gender gap in the criminal justice system between men and women is actually 6 times wider than the gap between blacks and whites. So we're looking at problems that really impact. And then, of course, if you're black, you're going to feel that even harder because, you also have the race angle. And I think that basically what's happened is we've had so much activism around racial issues and stuff like that, so much awareness raising and the whole bit, and anti-racism sentiment throughout the culture that, I mean, it's almost like we need a scapegoat, and the only one that's permissible to have in the current culture is someone who's part of the majority, so straight and white and male,
Yeah.
and then especially if he's powerful, then you can really hate on him, and it's just really a shame that it's come to this. But
Yeah.
that's what happens when you balkanize society into these little identity groups. And people might say I'm playing identity politics too, but you can't not play them, because if you don't, then your group gets left behind. Right now, white boys in kindergarten in the UK are the least likely demographic among their peers to attend university.
Wow.
That is what all of the projections say, right? And it's because they don't have, they're working class. They don't have the money and the stability of being in a middle class or upper middle class environment.
Right.
And they don't have anyone actually advocating on their behalf. They don't, because they're white.
That's amazing. We have about 2 minutes left together here. You appeared in a documentary movie, The Red Pill, and you call out the hypocrisy of hashtag Bring Back Our Girls when Boko Haram kidnapped Nigerian schoolgirls. But
Yes.
We saw Big Mama Michelle and Hollywood and everybody, hashtag Bring Back Our Girls, when in reality, more boys are being killed over there and kidnapped, but we rarely hear anything about it at all.
Yeah, I actually, the funny thing is, well, not funny, but the interesting thing is that at the time I actually was not aware, and I do a lot of research on this. I was not aware that those boys, it wasn't just they killed the boys and killed the boys and kidnapped the girls. They've also kidnapped something like 10,000 boys. Right. And I did not realize that at the time, so when all of those feminists would say, well, the reason why people are doing this now is not because they feel sorrier for girls. It's because there's hope of rescue. I could have said that's BS. Right.
Yes.
But I didn't even know because no newspapers were reporting it.
Amazing. Karen, I really, really appreciate what you're doing, and you're welcome on my show anytime. Thank you for
Awesome.
standing up for what is right. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All
Jesse.
right.